All righty. That was annoying. That's what that was. That was annoying. Knicks lose 116 to 100 to the Atlanta Hawks. The very annoying Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks sucks. They suck. They're just not my cup of tea. Even without Trae Young, they suck. No Jalen Brunson tonight. Obviously, we found that out before the game, but I think even so, this is a game you went into it feeling like the Knicks, I don't know about should win. I don't know if with the roster that they have right now, if Jalen Brunson is not a part of it, I don't know that there's necessarily any game that they should win, but it was certainly a game that you felt like they could win. And coming out of the gate, and I got to tell you, I don't remember another quarter that I have seen in an NBA basketball game quite like the first quarter of this game when the Knicks just got it was it. And again, we've talked a lot about like, okay, what's the best lineups to play if they don't have Randall and OG Anunoby, and now especially that goes even more so without Brunson. Like what gives them the best chance to win? What gives them the best chance to score and defend and kind of toe that line? And it's really hard because they're just they're missing their best two-way guy in OG Anunoby, and their centers are not, their center position is just not what it is used to, and we'll get back to that in a bit. So, but that first quarter, I think, set the tone for the game, certainly, in which the Knicks came out and they missed, it seemed like every good attempt that they had. They shot 25% from the quarter, not 25% from three, 25% from the quarter, missed 21 shots in the first quarter. Unbelievable. Went 3 of 16 from deep, and they dug themselves. We thought it was a 15-point hole, and it ended up being an 18-point hole. And I think Andrew Claudio is still mad about that because a bogey 3 was wiped away. So actually, I misspoke a minute ago. They went 6 of 28, or maybe that wasn't counted as a shot attempt. So let's go. They were 6 of 27 and 2 of 15 from 3 in reality in that first quarter, and down by 18. And yes, they went down eventually by 22 briefly in the second quarter. And yet, what do? They do what they always do. They fight. They don't quit. They don't give up. By hook or by crook, they find a way to make these games that should not be games a game. And I don't think I'm overstating it by saying like this should not have been a game, because like you look up, Jalen Johnson was best player on the floor by far. And I don't want to put it like the Knicks had no answer for him tonight, because the way he was playing, I don't know that a lot of teams would have a great answer for him tonight. He was 12 of 17 for 26 points. Murray didn't even need to do all that much. He's still top 21, 21, 9, and 6. And I thought the other area that the Hawks really, really hurt the Knicks, and you saw it, was on the boards with their size. And, it wasn't any one guy, but it was like across the board. Bay, 9 rebounds. Johnson, 9 rebounds. I'm looking at this right now. 4 starters for Atlanta had 9 rebounds. That's freaking wild. Not to mention Bruno Fernando off the bench with 7. So, like, yeah, I do feel comfortable saying the Knicks, this was probably not a game the Knicks should have been in, given how they came out of the gate and just were not able to hit anything, which is like, you shrug your shoulders. It's like the looks were not bad. They were just not going down. Dante DiVincenzo has been as good a three-point shooter in basketball for the better part of 3 months. He was 5 of 17 tonight. And you know what? 2 of those were late when the game was essentially over. For all intents and purposes, during the relevant portion of the game, he was 3 of 15. Like, it happens. I'm not blaming him, but like you're gonna get these nights sometimes. Deuce McBride's been, I think he's still over 40% for the year. If he's not, he's damn close. How many huge threes has he hit, or huge 3-point shooting games has he had over the course of the last few months? He was 3 of 10 tonight. Alec Burks, who I actually thought did a couple of nice things, he was 1 of 7. In terms of their shooters that they have, Bogey was like the best of the group, and he was only 4 of 11. Like, when you put all of those things together, this is a game that the final score probably should look like it does. But anybody who watched the game knows that the final score is not indicative of how this game went because, again, down by 22, fight back. I think there were three guys, and we'll see. I don't know if they're going to wind up being my 3 stars of the game. Probably will be. We'll see. You got a huge push from Precious in the second quarter. You got a big push from Josh Hart in the third quarter. And then I thought Deuce McBride really was kind of the capper there. And Deuce tried as much as he possibly could to keep it in it there in the early portion of the fourth quarter after they had already tied it up. They tied it up late in the third, but this was still a very, very competitive game right down really until I think there were like 4 minutes left. And then I don't know if running out of gas is the terminology that I want to use. Running out of gas, I mean, it's not inappropriate. I mean, you see the minute totals. Deuce McBride, 46 minutes, one game after he played 47 minutes. Josh Hart, I think Fred Katz tweeted out before, this is 7 straight games with Josh Hart over 40 minutes. They can't afford to sit him. And I think the tough part is that, yes, he was instrumental in that third quarter. He looked, for the first time, maybe, I don't know, in months, he looked like not himself in the first half. And like, that's probably putting it lightly. He was just like, there were loose balls that were near him that he wasn't getting, which is just something we never see. So is he getting tired? Dante DiVincenzo, 39 minutes. And again, he's their first offensive option. And without him on the floor, you saw how it was for this team to try to generate points without DiVincenzo on the court early in the fourth quarter. They couldn't do it. And that's ultimately, I think, why the game got away from them in part. 39 minutes. Again, he was 7 for 24 from the field in this game. I said already, 5 of 17 from 3. This is the reality of their situation right now. Is when you add in no Brunson. When you add in no Brunson, I mean no Brunson. That's the lead storyline, and then you add in still no Julius, still no OG, and then the last thing I'm gonna say is and still no Mitch. And I think it's been a bit of a roller coaster because we've seen over the last few months, month and a half, whatever it's been since the Achilles first started acting up. We've seen some good Hartenstein and we've seen some not good Hartenstein. This was definitely closer to the, I don't want to say like bad Hartenstein, but there are games where it's just the lift is not there. You saw it in the offensive possessions early in the game for Isaiah. I think he started out 1 of 4, finished the game 2 of 6. Defensively, not the same player. I mean, there's a reason he played 20 minutes in this game. Jericho Sims played 26 because Jericho Sims was the better of the 2 center options. And I like Sims did what he could. He's doing everything you expect out of your 11th, 12th man, whatever you consider him to be right now. But he is not Isaiah Hartenstein. He is not Mitchell Robinson when both of those guys are healthy. And this team relies so much on its centers, certainly at the defensive end. But I think offensively, for offensive rebounds, if you want to go there, and I'm looking at the offensive boards, the Knicks had 17 offensive rebounds tonight, but Hartenstein only got 3 of those. Sims got you 6. And that's why I say Sims was the better of the 2 center options tonight. But they need their full center contingent, and obviously to say nothing of the fact that they need all of their other guys. It's a lack of healthy bodies. It's a lack of talent at the moment. It's not a lack of fight, though. It's not a lack of fight. Because to be down 22 after you had that emotional win, you banked a win you were not supposed to bank in Cleveland. And then you went down by 22 because you couldn't hit the far side of a barn, couldn't throw the ball in the ocean from the beach. To fight back and tie that game, man, that to me, that says much more about this team. And I've said this similar versions about this or like this before after other games. That says far more about this team to me than the fact that they ultimately lost the game and let it get away from them in the final minutes. In terms of kind of bones to pick with the rotation or anything tonight, the big one's going to be Precious Achiuwa plus 3 in a game they lost by 16. He was outstanding in 24 minutes, 7 of 8 from the field, really kind of put the team on his back there in the second quarter. You could say he's the reason this wasn't a blowout because he was started having his way on the offensive end. I thought he imposed his defense or his presence a little bit on the defensive end. But ultimately, Tibbs felt like, look, I need the spacing out there, especially without Jalen Brunson. I need some semblance of offense, and between Deuce and Precious and a traditional center, not to mention Josh Hart, it's like, okay, how many non-shooters or shooters that defenses do not fear and are going to go under screens and like just challenge these guys to make shots? How many you could only have so many of these guys on the floor at once, which is why after the Golden State game, people were yelling and screaming, how in God's name can you have these lineups out there where you just have no shooting? Well, tonight it's going to be the opposite. How in God's name could you not put Precious Achiuwa out there when he's going crazy? And it's like, I'll say the same thing I said after the Golden State game. These are maybe not impossible choices, but these are really freaking difficult choices. And you want to tell me, okay, well, put Precious at the 5. I thought the Hawks were killing you as it was on the boards, and to go with Precious at the 5, I think would have been a little bit too dangerous for me at least. But reasonable minds could differ. I'm going to end on a bright spot. The Brooklyn Nets, the shitty Brooklyn Nets with their 87 fans, came up with a big win tonight. And the team that they were playing was the team that we are going to be playing twice in a row starting this weekend, and that is the Philadelphia 76ers, who were without Tyrese Maxey tonight, obviously without Joel Embiid, and you would have figured if there's ever going to be a game the Nets could win, this is the game that they could win. Well, they won it. And because they won it, the Knicks are still – they're going to show up, and they're technically 5th because they've lost the season series to Orlando, but they are still tied record-wise for 4th place with Philadelphia a half a game back, tied with Miami, who was also half a game back, and then and this, I'm about to put this game actually on my league pass. Indiana will finish tonight either a game back of the 6th, 7th grouping, so 1.5 games back of the Knicks and Magic, or 2.5 games back of the Knicks and Magic. So we'll see what Indiana does with this game tonight. I would not mind them losing to the Mavericks. But look, this is what it is. This is what it is. And last thing I'll say before we get to the Super Chats is Andrew, as we were signing off the playback, asked DJ for his closing thoughts, and DJ Zulo, and he just looked ahead to the next 3 games, and he said these 3 games are critical. There's no other word for it. These 3 games are critical. This is not to say that they need to go 3-0, but man, I mean, if you unless you want to have a extraordinarily unpleasant final month of the season in which almost every game is going to have the weight of the world on your shoulders if you're the Knicks, you got to find a way. Again, it's unfair. It's unfair of anyone to ask them to do this, but you got to find a way. Do you need to go 2-1? Do you need to? Do you need to beat Orlando, who you're tied with right now, to avoid going 0-4 against the Magic? I think a lot of that's going to come down to whether Jalen Brunson plays. Again, not to say that they can't win without Jalen Brunson. They just beat the Cavs without Jalen Brunson. I would argue, the Magic healthy are a little bit better than the Cavs minus Donovan Mitchell, but, reasonable minds could disagree. They were in a competitive game with the Hornets down the stretch, but like this Magic team, they grind out games. So even if Brunson plays, that's not going to be a gimme. And then you have 2 straight against the Sixers. And boy, oh boy, talk about some big games. As I'm looking up right now, that the freaking Pacers are up by 15 on the Mavs in Dallas, no less. The hell's going on here? Okay, I think that's it. We'll talk about individual performances, I guess, as we go through the super chats. But I think I hit on everything that I wanted to hit. Actually, no. Bogey and Burks combined to shoot 11 of 32. It's not what you brought them here for. It's a broken record at this point. They were brought here to help bridge the gap. And I will say right now, if one of those guys gives you a big game, I think you win this game tonight. If both of those guys have average games, I think you win tonight. And that gets into the dicey choices for this team right now because, like, how do you define a bogey game? Because you have to consider the defense too. So, like, how good does he need to be on offense to counterbalance what you are not getting from him on the defensive end? And the answer ultimately is a lot better than 6 for 18 for 19 points. And so those guys, they need to be better. Not saying the trade was a failure. I'm not even saying I would go back and I wouldn't make the trade again. I would. I still believe in the trade. It has not worked out in their favor so far. These guys need to be better, and that's all there is to it. I don't want this to turn. I don't want any game to turn into a blame this guy or blame that guy fest because when you are missing arguably your 4 best players, and arguably you probably throw in DiVincenzo, and you probably throw in Hartenstein, you probably throw in Hart. Hartenstein's not Hartenstein right now. DiVincenzo, again, during the relevant portion of this game, went 3 of 15. And Hart, for the first time in, again, half a season, looked gassed. So, like, in terms of, like, your quote-unquote healthy top 8, none of those guys showed up tonight, either because they literally were not in uniform or because they just did not perform as you needed them to perform. That's where this team is at. And if that is where this team is at, the last thing I'm going to do is point at the 9th guy and point at the 10th guy and be like, you're the reason why we're in this predicament. That is not the case. But at the same time, it is also okay, I think, to say we need you guys to be better. And they need them to be better. That's all there is to it.